Hi there, Lily. So we've got some new essays from you. I'm very excited to see that. Good work. Let's get right into your first video correction and see what you had to say. Okay, schools, more entertaining or just educate? Let's see what you said. It is universally accepted that knowledge teaching is academic institutions' only task. However, there are always people who argue that teaching activities should be more attractive. I am a supporter of these people. This essay will discuss entertaining schooling versus serious education. Okay, it's fine. I mean, you've done pretty much what you're supposed to do, although there are a couple of changes that I would like to suggest. So let's take a look at it. First of all, let's avoid using as much as possible the apostrophe showing possessive with objects that are not alive, okay? So, it's, how can I say this? You just don't do it. So, or at least most of the times you don't do it. There are some times where you can. So instead, let's say it is universally accepted that teaching, how about, here's a great expression for you, imparting information or imparting knowledge. That's an even better word. Okay, so is the only task of academic institutions. All right, so I would make those two changes there. However, there are people, not always people, there are people who argue that teaching activities should be more attractive. Attractive, I know you're trying to look for a synonym for entertaining. Not really convinced that they're synonyms. How about, however, there are people who argue that teaching activities should incorporate some element of fun. Okay, that would be a little more accurate. And you're not a supporter of these people, you're a supporter of that viewpoint. Okay, so that's what you want to say. I am a supporter of this viewpoint, and then the rest of it is fine. So let's move on to your body. Firstly, educating without concern for learners' interest, okay, mainly involve rules, regulations, and lecturing. Subconsciously, comma, it expects listeners to become passive followers or score chasers. A national survey by EDU Council in UK showed that 65% of children from grade 1 through 9 complained that their schools are boring. This environment can hardly produce creative thinkers, imaginative writers, artists, and passionate science explorers. Okay, okay, it's fine. I mean, I would like to see a little more development of this, just a little bit. I mean, you've pretty much stayed consistent to the acronym, but I still think that there was probably another sentence you could have added to, like this. Why do you think it expects people to become passive followers or score chasers? So I think that some of this needed to be discussed a little bit more in detail. I think there were things you could have said, okay? Moving on, secondly, interest has long been regarded as the best teacher in the world. Responsible educators are not supposed to neglect this belief. The thought of pupils sitting 8 hours a day in a classroom is unbearable. Unfortunately, this is a common phenomenon in many Asian countries. There should be better alternatives. Motivational teaching activities stimulate passion and imagination and are thus likely to make excellent individuals. Okay. All right, let's move on, and I'll tell you at the end. In short, this essay is not, this essay is not suggesting turning an academic place into a recreational center. Rather, aiming to add elements of fun to all kinds of training will secure engagement and realize the real purpose of education. All right, I love your conclusion. That's lovely. My issue here is, you talk about the better alternatives, but you don't really tell me what they are. Instead, what you do is you essentially just complain about this side of the argument, and you never really talk about this. You say, yes, this should exist, but only by discussing this and how wrong it is. So I actually did want you to develop how, why, in one of your paragraphs, okay? I really liked your conclusion. It was really nice. Like I said, you talked about adding elements of fun, but you never actually discussed those elements of fun, what they are, how they could help, and so forth and so forth. Okay, so think about that when you develop these essays. All right, let's move on to your next one, which is reading versus fun activities. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Reading is highly recommended for children's leisure time. No, for children's leisure time, know this, by many people, whilst others argue that spending time with a child on pleasant activities will do a much better job in fostering the child's skills and creativity. My opinion is in favor of the latter. This essay will analyze drawbacks to solely reading and positive outcomes of doing something fun with a child. Let's try to avoid words like kid in an IELTS essay. The language should be academic, and kid is decidedly informal. Moving on. On the one hand, reading is quite passive. For a child, seeing someone else's world as a bystander is far more tedious than actively getting involved in something enjoyable as a participant. Furthermore, here, the child is constrained to a sitting position, seated position, perhaps, during the process of reading. There's something missing here. There's a linking device that's missing. So let's try it again. Furthermore, the child is constrained to a seated position during the process of reading. Therefore, this inactivity is likely to drive the child to sleep. Not to mention, what? Imagination innovation? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means at all. You can't say numerous research because research is uncountable, so it should just be considerable research. So considerable research on children's behavior by the U.S. Education Bureau confirms that reading ranks number 7 in establishing children's basic skills for those aged 4 to 10. It is undeniable that reading contributes to people's intelligence and longevity. However, there are far more ideal alternatives for children to develop fundamental skills and creativity. On the other hand, when occupied with interesting, exciting, usually competitive activities, children are focused with undivided attention. This is beneficial to their sensory development, which helps us form different skills such as grouping information, comparing functions, arranging sequences, etc. At this moment, the child is keen on observing details. He or she tends to ask questions and is active in finding answers and solving problems. Creativity flourishes under this unconstructed setting. A recent psychology report by WHO shows that enjoyable activities with parents boost, children's self-esteem and creativity through problem solving and decision making. Well-designed activities form a training ground for the real world. Lovely. Lovely vocabulary, lovely ideas, lovely grammar. Excellent. Good job. To conclude, I firmly believe that getting immersed in an activity that a child is enthusiastic about is far more profitable than reading obediently and quietly, as the former will help equip the child with multiple skills and creativity. Lovely job. Really good, Lily. I like this quite a bit. Good job. Really, very good job. Okay, so what you need to do now is correct these essays based on the suggestions in this video. Then create an error correction list where you'll have the errors on one side of the page, and then next to them you'll have the suggested corrections. Okay, send these files back to us. They're for your benefit so you can learn from your mistakes, but send them back to us along with your new essays. Try to do all of this within the next 24 hours or so you can really apply everything you've been learning. All right, so I will let you get to that task. You did a very nice job, so congratulations. Keep on writing, and I will be looking forward to seeing your next essays.